According to a sweatshirt that I have at home, Bayside is a cult, and I guess that would make this guy the leader of the cult. Anthony Raneri is here with me. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Would you consider yourself a cult leader?
I don't think so. I don't buy into my press. You know what I mean? It's hard for me. I think it's awesome that my music means something special to a lot of people. And that's great, and that's why I think music exists, and there's a lot of music that means that to me, and it's so cool to know that my music means that to other people. At the same time, though, if I took that all on, I guess, it would be like a little much.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, just walking around the house like, I'm the leader.
Right, yeah. That, and also, like, you know, a lot of people tell me specifics, like at shows every night, somebody's telling me specifics of specific songs that got them through specific situations, and that's amazing, you know, and I always say that's so great. I'm so glad that, like, that we played some sort of part in getting you through that, you know.
We are here at the legendary North Star Bar, where you've been a lot, and you've played Philadelphia a ton too. Is there any Philadelphia moments that stand out to you?
Specific Philadelphia moments. I've always loved playing here. I mean, it's really cool for us, because Philadelphia was one of the places that we would play when we first started. You know, we started the band in New York, so Philly and all the surrounding areas, Westchester and everywhere around, we would come down and play all the time, you know, much more than we'd go out and play, like, say, San Francisco or something, you know. And when we first started, before we went on proper tours, we could come down for a weekend or whatever. So it's so cool for me to have played with the band, play places like the North Star, play places like the Pontiac Grill, all these, like, real small kind of places, and even halls, you know, playing in VFW halls and stuff like that, house shows at the beginning, and then we started opening for bigger bands in places like the Trocadero and places like the TLA, and then we moved up to be able to start headlining those places, and then opening for bands at places like the Electric Factory, and now going and headlining at the Electric Factory. Like, right. The history, the climb up for us in Philadelphia is like very, very evident. You know,
cool,
it started so small and has gotten so big.
Yeah, because it's so familiar to you. Like, I'm sure this city more than other cities, like, you can say that, like, hey, yeah, I remember playing the Troc when we opened for such and such, and then I remember doing that, and same thing with the Factory, and I mean, look, growing up a Bayside fan, I've seen the same thing. Like, I've seen you open for people at the Electric Factory, and then I went to the birthday show at the Electric Factory, and that's a cool thing, like the evolution of a band like that.
Totally, and like I said, Philadelphia is one of there's a unique history for us in Philadelphia because it's so close. And, like, you know, like I said, with San Francisco, with California, with the West Coast, even with, you know, the Midwest, it was a while before we got out there. We were playing for a few years before we were able to get a tour that took us all the way out west, you know. So whereas with Philadelphia, like, pre-record deals, you know, pre-having an album out, like, I remember playing in Philadelphia selling CDRs, burned CDRs at the merch table, you know. So because it's so close to us, like, it started real small, you know, and whereas adversely with other markets that are further away from where we came up, we didn't even make it out there till we had a record deal, till we had a proper record. Our record was in stores, we were getting some press and stuff. So like I said, though, with Philadelphia, it started really at the bottom.
So Sorry State of Mind is the new music, and that's what you're here doing, you know, here by yourself tonight. How is that experience different? I mean, when you go out and you do these shows by yourself compared to when you are with Bayside as a whole?
It's very different from what Bayside's doing now, obviously. You know, now with Bayside, there's buses and there's production and there's a light show and there's a big crew and it's a lot of people. It's a big thing, you know, and I love that. Obviously, it's cool. It's a lot of fun to do that. Doing the solo stuff, it takes me back to what was fun about when we started Bayside. It's very similar to how Bayside used to tour. You know, driving myself around, and which is great. It's a lot of fun to do. You know, it's like a tour the way that Bayside tours is not a road trip. You know, but right. I think people think of tour as a road trip. It's not a road trip. Right. You know, I don't see anything. You know, like on the bus, I'm asleep while we drive. I wake up, I go to sound check in my pajamas. I get something to eat. I start warming my voice up. I play the show, and then I go back to the bus. You know what I mean? And then we do it again the next day. With the solo thing, like I said, it does remind me of the way Bayside used to tour, because I stay in a hotel. I wake up in the morning and I drive, and if there's a cool place to eat in town, then I drive to it and I eat. And I can't do that in a tour bus. You know, I don't have the freedom to just do whatever I want. So it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. Like, I'm behind the merch table all night, so I'm meeting the fans, which is really cool. Again, on the Bayside scale, it's a little hard to meet everyone who comes to all the shows. But like, you know, playing in places like this, it's easy for me to just stand behind the merch table, and when there's 200-300 people a night at the shows, like, I could easily just, you know, meet every person,
Totally.
hear their stories. They talk about the music, they ask me questions, I ask them how they found out about us, and you know, it's awesome to have that sort of a connection with the fans.
So on this on the new album, this Starry State of Mind, and I just read you address this online, and it's interesting to me because, you know, with a band like Bayside, there's definitely, I mean, they call it a cult for a reason. Like, it's a following, and, you know, you and everything that you do, there's a certain expectation for things. And then you put out this new album, and on your solo stuff, you like to experiment and do different things. And there's some auto-tune on one of the songs, and that freaked everybody out.
Yeah.
And they accused you of trying to be Lil Wayne and trying to do all these different things. Is that tough ever to, you know, you have these people that are so loyal to you and love your music so much, but at the same time, like, managing their expectations versus your own creativity and what you want to do?
It doesn't get to me, because for one thing, like, when I said that I don't take on everything that everybody says about me. That goes for praise. You know, I don't buy all the praise, and then at the same time, I don't buy the negativity. It's just, like, I make music. I'm very, very lucky that people want to listen to it. I'm very, very lucky that enough people want to listen to it, that I get to make a living doing it. But at the end of the day, I make music, you know, and all the experimenting that I do on the solo stuff, it's really because Bayside has a sound, and I love that sound, and I think the fans love that sound. And I've had a lot of bands that I've grown up listening to that started experimenting, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and then sometimes your favorite band doesn't sound like your favorite band anymore. Sure. You know, and you don't like the new stuff as much as the old stuff, and that's sort of like a really common theme with bands. And I never want that to happen with Bayside, so we don't experiment with Bayside. We just try to get better. We know that this is what Bayside sounds like. This is a Bayside song. How do we improve on the Bayside sound?
And it evolves, right? And it evolves,
exactly.
Right.
So with this, but like, as a musician, as a music lover, I have really eclectic taste. So I want to play around with that stuff. You know, I want to have an out. Like, so for me, the solo thing is my outlet to experiment, to play around, to try new things, because I don't want to kind of shake up the Bayside sound too much, you know, because I think that we've sort of stumbled onto a sound that is unique and that works for us. So like, you know, and I try to make that clear with the solo, with all the solo stuff that I release. It's always like, hey, this is where I experiment. Like, check it out if you want. If you don't want to hear my experimentations, then don't check it out.
Right.
Like it if you want. Don't like it if you want. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I think you said something to the effect of, hey, if you like Bayside and that's all you want, and you don't want to hear this thing that I'm doing over here, then fine, there'll be more Bayside.
Yeah, the next Bayside record will sound like Bayside.
Like
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like there was a certain movement when I first heard Bayside, and I around the same time kind of first heard Taking Back Sunday and first heard Saves the Day, and like all that kind of happened at the same time. And it's interesting now that all those bands are celebrating these birthdays. Like, there's 10-year anniversaries of albums and 15 years for you guys. And, you know, how healthy is it? Are we just older that it doesn't seem like there's new stuff in that genre as much? Like, I still go back to Bayside and the Taking Back Sundays more than I do. Like, Warped Tour was just here, and I looked at it and I go, I don't know any of this.
Yeah, well, you know, Warped Tour is a unique thing. Warped Tour has, I've had a lot of conversations with friends and other bands and stuff, and even with fans about Warped Tour, and the sort of the reflex is to think that Warped Tour has changed and Warped Tour is not what it used to be. And I don't think that's true. I think that when we were doing Warped Tour, when a lot of our contemporaries were doing Warped Tour, that era of it, or when I was attending it even before we started playing it, when I was buying tickets to go, that there was probably an older generation who thought that like that wasn't cool and thought that like we weren't cool.
Do you think so? You think there's like Bad Religion fans that were like, "What the hell is this?"
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And now I think Warped Tour has maintained. I think that it's us who have moved.
We're just old.
I think it's not even an old versus a young thing. I think that we've become into different things, you know.
Sure.
I think that Warped Tour is the same as it's always been, you know. I think like Warped Tour to a new group of 16 and 17-year-old kids, or younger or older, means the same thing as it did to me when I was 16 or 17.
Okay. All right, that's a fair point.
Tonight at the legendary North Star Bar, right now in a garden, it's Anthony Raneri. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, we're standing in a future Starbucks right now.
That's right. One day, this will be something.